Good afternoon, everybody. This is Pamela Parrish coming at you on her Keeping It Real podcast. This is where I keep it 100% with you guys. And we have to talk about certain things. We have to talk about what's going on in news, what's going on in politics, and what's going on with the attack on our free speech and our rights as people in this country. We're going to start off with Rampage Jackson today. The LAPD has had a bad track record in over many years. The Rodney King beating. And now with Rodger Jackson being on the loose for over a month after nearly beating Psycho Stu to death in a wrestling ring in front of families, cousins, grandmas, grandfathers, parents, friends, whatever. Rodger Jackson videotaped everything that day. From him complaining about not feeling well and vomiting and probably needing to go to the hospital, by all accounts. He's a 25-year-old who thought that, oh, fuck it, I'm going to go and see this event that I call him Cowboy Bitch Buddy, that my Cowboy Bitch Buddy wants me to go. So he shows up with the Cowboy Bitch Buddy and a camera crew. And Psycho Stu thinks it's a work. And they talk for a minute. And Psycho Stu says, "You don't know who I am?" And he's like, "Nah." And he takes a half-empty prop can, smacks it up against the head of Rodger Jackson. And Rodger Jackson is lit right there, like he wanted to really take him down and beat the crap out of him. And Rodger's like, "Aren't you going to sell the gag?" And his buddies finally realize, hey, Rodger is not part of the show. He's not part of this work. And Rodger, unlike Psycho Stu, I think he feigned the apology. And, they shook hands on it. Once you shake hands on something, whether it's an apology, you have to leave it alone. But Rodger Jackson had it in his mind from the Cowboy Bitch Buddy that maybe they could work it into the work so that he can give him what is a receipt, either a body slam or some type of tap in the ring as payback for what he did. But as you see in the videos, Rodger Jackson is still stewing. He says, "Get me more subscribers. Get me a certain amount of subscribers and I will knock Psycho Stu out." And he would later go on to say, "No, there ain't going to be nothing fake about what I'm going to do." He's like, "I'm going to get in that ring. I'm going to fuck this guy up. And it's going to take somebody to pull me off of him for me to stop." But he not only got in that ring, body slammed Psycho Stu, and knocked out Psycho Stu. And he started laying on these punches, like he was punching meat, like Rocky. And it's not kayfabe. It's not kayfabe. It went from kayfabe to absolute real 100%. A little boy saw that. Said, "Hey, he really hit that guy. He's really hitting that guy." Blood and teeth were flying everywhere. And a guy named Doug finally had to get in there when a 19-year-old couldn't stop him. None of Psycho Stu's co-workers were going in there to stop him. The referee was fucking useless. And Doug gets in there to try and pull off Rodger. And Rodger punches Doug in the eye and tries to sweep out his legs. And he tried to get back to beating Psycho Stu. But Doug, bless his soul, headbutted Rodger Jackson and would later have to take a bite out of him to get him to stop. And Rodger Jackson slinks out of that ring, walking up the way, away from the venue, complaining, I'm tired of people picking on me, man. I'm going to stand up for my own self. And then some kid that was painted up like a wrestler wanted words with Rodger. And Rodger was so mad that he was going to try and go after that kid. And the cameraman said, "Come on, Rodger, let's just go. We've got to go. Let's get going." And I don't know where Rodger stopped, but his cowboy bitch buddy would later call him and say they're still working on Psycho Stu. He's not waking up. They're calling paramedics. They may have to take him to the hospital. It's not looking good. And when they got Psycho Stu packaged up and to the hospital, they had to put Psycho Stu in a medically induced coma to help in the recovery of Psycho Stu's brain. I know he's probably going to have surgery to have fake teeth put in. And, they said that, he said that Psycho Stu is not waking up. He may have to have surgery. He could die. He's not doing well. And Rodger's response was, "My bad." And you could see blood on his shirt as sort of a trophy for what he'd done. Nearly beating a man to death. Well, about a month later, Rodger Jackson is now arrested, but he's not charged with attempted murder. And I agree with Doug that what this guy did was nothing short of murder. Not only did the school where this happened at lose its accreditation with WWE, it put a black mark on his father. It put a black mark on Rodger Jackson. Rampage went from teasing his son about being jumped by men in tights, but he went from chastising his son to doing what Donald Trump has done. I'm going to sue those who are downing my son for what he did. For the fact that your son, that you said in a video that you were saving up bail money for, not just your one son that's under the microscope, but your other son here in America. You're saving up bail money for them while you're giving your Japanese kids college funds. Well, if you're that concerned about your two sons here in America, you should have been more firm with your children. Set expectations and put them on the right path to being a success instead of being felons. But you know what, Mr. Rampage, sir? I'm telling you, your actions speak louder. Well, if my dad cares more about his Chinese children or Japanese children, then I'm not going to hold myself up to a higher level to make my dad proud. I'm going to become that felon my dad is worried about me possibly becoming. Well, now you could use that bail money that you saved up for your American children to pay for his legal fees. But what you should be doing is paying for the medical cost of Psycho Stu and any future surgeries that he may have. And the sad thing is, Psycho Stu was trying to integrate back into today's world after war. He served his country, Mr. Rampage. Your son beat up not just a wrestler that has been with that company since its beginning. And he may not be able to wrestle again. And many people that have went to that school are distancing themselves from what happened. And your son should pay with as many years as possible. And to me, 6 years ain't gonna cut it. There are no charges for attempted murder. I think it's a shame. I think the judge should make that decision, not some hot pants lawyer. I think the jury, if it goes to trial, they should look at all the evidence. It's right there, plain as day, and it's circulating around YouTube, so it will never go away. And no matter how much money Rodger or his daddy may try to throw at the legal system, your son needs to pay the price for what he's done. And if you think he's going to be able to get into any form of sports, as in mixed martial arts or wrestling for that matter, hell no. Because your son is a hot red flag, he is a liability, and he's a danger to not just wrestlers in the ring, but he's a danger to outdoor society outside of that. Because he not only wanted to beat the life out of a wrestler, he wanted to beat up somebody that was on the outside being all hot and bothered. He wanted to go and beat the ass of a guy painted up in grease paint to be like a wrestler. He wanted to beat up that guy that was outside of the venue. And your son walked up the street like a coward, complaining about how people are bullying him and that he wants to stand up for himself. Well, we need to look at you, Mr. Rampage. Maybe you need to look at how you're raising your son. Because if you want your son to have a better future, you need to reevaluate how you raised your child, or otherwise he's going to end up in the house of many doors, sitting in an electric chair or on a gurney getting poisons for killing a man. Because if Psycho Stu had died in that ring, he certainly would have gone up for murder. And he should still go up for attempted murder. And for those that want to push for the attempted murder charge, please do so. Because from what I saw, he was trying to kill that man. And he certainly would have killed Doug if he had the chance. Because Doug tried to pull him off when none of his other constituents would do so. That referee was effing useless. His co-workers were effing useless. But Doug did what a good man does. Go up there and try to pull off a psychotic killer off of a man that was steps away from being slaughtered to death in the ring. And the one thing that Rodger should be kissing the ass of is that Stu survived. Stu survived. He's got probably lifetime effects from this, just like the PTSD he has from war. He probably has post-traumatic stress from the beatdown that you gave him. And from the interview they gave Doug and his cohorts. At the time, Psycho Stu had no memory of what happened. But you're going to have to pay, Rodger. You're really going to have to pay. I think you should pay for the rest of your natural life because you're not only a danger to those in the sports world, but you're a danger to those on the outside world, and Daddy needs to know that. And he needs to really reevaluate how you failed your 25-year-old son. Because now he is not only a liability, he is a massive danger to the general public. So, you guys can make what you will on that. Let's move on to Jimmy Kimmel, who was taken off the air by a minuscule commentary that he made regarding the Charlie Kirk assassination and how Donald Trump was handling that situation. And in my humble opinion, Donald Trump sees Charles Kirk as expendable and that he didn't really care about Charlie Kirk, period. You know, he says, oh, I'm doing okay. But then he starts talking about this new unwanted ballroom that is being put on the White House that we are paying for on our dime, by the way. Hello. He's talking about how this grand ballroom that has been needed for hundreds of years is being put on the White House instead of acting like a person that's supposed to be grieving for his friend. You know, and let me put it to you this way. He's pulling a Nancy Brophy. He's pulling a Nancy Brophy. You know, for a guy that supposedly lost his best friend, he looks like he doesn't have a care in the world. You know, he's talking some bullshit about a ballroom when a colleague or a friend has been murdered. You know, when I lost my parents, I was really a shell of my former self. When my dad died, I wanted to unalive myself. I talked that talk. I've been there. And when my mother died, I was a ghost. I thought I could go out and live my life again. But I had this look like my mom's dead. My mom's dead. That kept playing in my head. I went to Kmart, did some shopping. Then I went over to the library to return some books I had in my backpack. And they asked me how I was doing, and the dam burst. And I said, my mom recently died, and I cried right there in the middle of the library. That's what grieving somebody you care about is. But in truth, Donald Trump didn't care about Charlie Kirk. You know, he went to a ball game the night that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. You know, he went to a ball game not long after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And looked like he was having the time of his life, not a care in the world. But Donald Trump's sensitive ass had Disney in a vice, and they bent to Trump's will and canceled Kimmel. But we, the American people, weren't going to stand for that. People were canceling their Disney Plus subscriptions, and that has Hulu and all that shit all together. They were canceling it in record droves. And, they were saying, Donald Trump, the motherfucker, is trying to censor our free speech. Kimmel didn't kill anyone. He was making a lighthearted show for people to enjoy, and yet he could point out and critique the president and his attitude on the Charlie Kirk death. And to me, what Donald Trump did is insensitive to Charlie Kirk. He didn't show any proper respect to Charlie Kirk. He didn't act like what a person would be doing in times of crises. He didn't show any emotion when he talked about stopping the political violence. Disney did the wrong thing by bending to Trump, and the FCC did the wrong thing by bending to Trump. ABC, CBS, and NBC, and Disney itself is paying dearly for supporting a demagogue. Donald Trump should face the 25th Amendment for inciting not just violence in the beginning of his first term. Remember, he was quoted on camera as saying he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose voters. And he's bullying people, mocking disabled people on camera. Oh, I don't remember, and flailing his arms about. Back in the day, comedians would make lighthearted commentaries. And the most famous is the Joe Cocker impersonation done brilliantly by John Belushi. But I don't think Joe Cocker was offended. He did a perfect dead-on impersonation of Joe Cocker, because that's who Joe Cocker was. He got into his music, and he considered it a great tip of the hat to the guy. But Donald Trump was just critiqued on his actions after Charlie Kirk was brutally murdered. And, Jimmy Kimmel paid the price for it. Whereas Donald Trump was caught on camera, on hot mics, and I talk about the shooting someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose voters. A prime example of him not having the presidency. But yet, Billy Bush loses his job after catching Donald Trump on a hot mic about grabbing women by their genitals and forcing kisses on women without their consent. That should have kept him from the presidency. But no, Billy Bush loses his job, and Donald Trump gets the presidency, and Jimmy Kimmel critiques Donald Trump's attitude after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And Donald Trump forces Disney to cancel Kimmel in no uncertain terms. Somebody said we could do this the easy way or the hard way. It was like something out of Scarface or some other movie. We could do this the easy way or we could do it the hard way. But when you have a leader of our country trying to silence our comedians and news media, those are the people we don't want in the office of the presidency of the United States. We still need to make an example of Disney. We still need to make an example of ABC, CBS, NBC. And we need to make an example of the CDC, who is trying to stop vaccinations at some extent. We need to make an example of these too big for their pants companies and these idiots that take over the CDC. We need to make an example of them. That you're not going to stop my right as a person to have an autonomy over my body. It's just like they're going after the LGBTQ community, fighting for their rights that they have absolutely every right to. The right to marry, the right to live, love, and be happy. They're wanting to do away with that. But Donald Trump is learning the hard way that if we really care about our rights as a country, we need to start standing up for them. We cannot let a idiot that was elected into power with no political experience try to change our White House and try to change our media. We have every right to critique. We have every right to condone any action that we deem is wrong by the president. Especially when he has people go to the Capitol and tear that place up and kill not just Brian Sicknick, but a lady went to the Capitol. And because the Secret Service had to protect their constituents, a lady gets murdered. And people that were promised pardons but never got them wound up unaliving themselves. And those he did grant pardons to, they got out of jail and started committing the very same crimes that they were arrested for, period. And yet, members of our Democratic Party were slaughtered outside their homes. A member of Nancy Pelosi's family was attacked in his own home. Her own husband was attacked inside of his own home. He didn't condemn that. But, he's trying to play like he actually cares, but he doesn't. Watch the actions of him being interviewed by media. How are you holding up? He says, I'm doing great. But then he goes on to talk about some dumb ballroom that we are paying for on our dime, an unwanted ballroom, mind you. You know, and then he goes to a fucking baseball game, you know, having the time of his life, not having a care in the world. And people are booing him in New York. And he says, get rid of these ladies. You know, have them trespassed, have them charged. He had that done. Nobody is standing up for them. Make an example of people like Disney, CBS, ABC, NBC. And get rid of the people that are defunding PBS. Bring back the people that want good quality programming for our kids. You know, keep making that example is what I'm saying. Don't go back to Disney. Even if Jimmy Kimmel is reinstated, don't buy anything Disney. Don't support anything Disney has. Make them pay. And if I were Jimmy Kimmel, I said, you know what? You want me to come back to your network? But I think I'll take my show and my constituents and take it to YouTube and any other platform that will host me. That includes Kick, that includes Odyssey, that includes any other video platform. Even Dailymotion. I will even go to Dailymotion. Even if I have to set up a Patreon where they could have $5 tiers, $10 tiers, $15 tiers, up to $75 if possible. If they want to support my content, I'll take any amount that they could give me. Even if it's $1, I will take that. And I could expand my audience that way. I don't need a TV network to support me. I will go out there and do what I need to do to make people happy and critique our government. Because that is what we have the right to do. And if we really want to take this a step further, why don't we implement the 25th and get Donald Trump out of office? I'm going to say this 3 times. Implement the 25th. Implement the 25th. Implement the 25th and get Donald Trump out of office. And never let networks like Disney, CBS, NBC, ABC, and any other network that follows Donald Trump's example, never let them forget. Just because they're allowing Kimmel back on the air doesn't mean we can allow them to forget about it. Never, ever let them forget about it. And we should make Donald Trump get out of the White House. Implement the 25th and hold people accountable. If we could do it for Rodger Jackson, give him more than 6 years. And we should be able to do that for Donald Trump. Implement the 25th and put him in jail. And when he dies, put his son in jail, Don Jr. Make an example. You know, people like Mary Trump warned us about him. Other people have warned us about him. But we did, you know, those that didn't vote before, we paid for it. I know I paid for it when he was first elected. But when I saw what was going down his first term, I registered to vote, and I will continue to vote. And you cannot take away my right to vote. He cannot take away my right to critique the presidency. He doesn't have the right to take away my right to vent how angry I am with him. And if we could take off InfoWars for spreading misinformation, then we should take Donald Trump and put him on the stand and evoke the 25th Amendment, get him out, and get somebody that actually gives a damn about our country. And as I said, with all the people that he deported, you have a certain time on your visa to study up, to become an honest, responsible citizen of this country. Maybe then attitudes would change about the Middle Eastern people that get bullied and attacked over here. You know, your MAGA people did not have the right to go out and assault people on the street. One woman got assaulted just right outside her house. Now that she's lived in San Francisco for years, this lady that did not speak a lick of English had to be translated by her sister. stating that her sister is now afraid to go out of her own house. And people were being attacked going to church. And over recent years, over the last 6 years, I heard about a 70-plus-year-old man that was shoved off a bus by a black lady. And she got 20-plus years in jail for that when they identified her and they brought her in. But the guy she killed died weeks later after the initial push from a bus. Yet, members of our government didn't condone that. They are so worried about their Fourth Amendment that they're willing to take down anybody that is willing to critique them and put them on notice that what they're doing is wrong. We need to let these networks know, we need to let the president know that what you did was absolutely wrong. And those who were fired from their jobs for speaking out about Charlie Kirk should file lawsuits for wrongful termination, because we should not be forced to grieve for somebody we don't know nothing about. We shouldn't be forced to grieve for someone who advocates for division and hatred. When Donald Trump dies, don't expect me to share the funeral footage. Don't expect me to share anything about if he gets the presidential library, which I don't think he earned that right to a presidential library. Donald Trump should be impeached. He should be put in jail. And he should be made an example of. That if you're going to silence non-threatening free speech, then you should be up under a rock. You're not Vladimir Putin. You're just Putin's bitch. And Vladimir Putin is probably sitting in his home or office right now laughing at you. If we could stand up for Jimmy Kimmel, we need to stand up against the outrageous pricing that Disney is doing and groceries is doing, all because of Trump's tariffs. We need to stand up against the tariffs that is killing American families. Their ability to work hard and retire at a certain age. Because right now, families cannot have parents to retire at their retirement age. They're burnt through their 401ks. They're burning through their savings just trying to keep a roof over their head. Make an example of our politicians. Write your constituents. Make videos. Call them out. Just because Kimmel was reinstated, keep canceling your Disney